Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Check out my comics, Big Baby, Star Crasher at KingComics.CA. Check out my other videos on YouTube. King Comics 2021 is the channel. Check out my Instagram, Maximus Rex 13, and check out my Facebook, Max Rex or Big Baby. And today is Todd McFarlane Day. So we're looking at Spawn number 13. This is August 1993, I believe. Yep. And this is the second part of a two-parter that started last review, issue number 12, with the mystery behind Alcimon's death. The mystery was solved at the end of last issue. It was a cliffhanger image of a really JAE Lee inspired image of Chapel, right? The Youngblood character. So it's been revealed after a year back in Image continuity, back in the day in the 90s. That Chapel is the guy who killed Spawn. There's kind of a lead up a bit in Youngblood Strike File. So I assume, again, probably the dates work out where this is in around that time. And this is, in a way, kind of Youngblood Strike File as a prologue to this two-parter. And again, it made sense last issue that McFarlane was kind of doing a JAE Lee-ish kind of Chapel. So I find it weird when you get to this issue, next issue, that we've got a way more... Well, this is a very McFarlane Chapel, but it's definitely that original Rob Liefeld design where it's just face paint. Where when JAE Lee did it, it almost looked like it wasn't face paint, like his face was, and that'll kind of resolve itself in this issue, and I think lead to some inspiration for how McFarlane handles Spawn's face later on. We'll be talking more about that when we get there, but anyways, let's focus on this issue here. This cover, I think, is pretty cool, clever, nice. Killer shot of Spawn. McFarlane's doing all his tricks on this cover, all right? So he's using the energy to create the layering, right? The foreground, underground stuff. He's got the energy here, the extra bit around coming out of the hand, right? So that creates more layering. He's got kind of this framing device with the skulls across here and the Chapel head, right? That kind of frames the image. That adds an extra 2 layers, really. So Chapel and then the skulls behind him. Question, is the skull a stat? That would make sense, right? Where, you know, a photocopy or it's digitally reproduced, maybe. Hopefully it's on the original art, or they all look pretty much the same if I look really up close to the inking. So that's probably what they did there. That would make sense. You've got candles behind this framing device of the skulls and between the Spawn. Then you've got the Spawn's chains. Then you've got the cape. It's really like, I'm starting to think that Todd McFarlane designed Spawn or redesigned Spawn in the 90s to just for maximum layering effect and to create like the most 3D kind of sensation and feeling that you could get. Because he's really just on this cover. It's a good example of how he's maximizing that. If I break it down real quick, just because I'm a bit of a nerd and I'd like to know the number, so I'm going to do it real quick. Now, so I didn't even notice here, but I'm pointing it out now. Again, the genius of this. His hand is actually what's closest to us, what's in the foreground, right? Because the rays, again, create the layering over the candle here, over the skulls, and even over Chapel. Like, he did it on purpose to tell you, like, the hand is what's closest. So that's your foreground. Let's work from front to back, basically. So we've got 1, 2, 3, the skulls, 4, the candles, 5, chains, 6, some sort of box under the candles, 7, the cape, 8, Spawn himself. We'll count this energy thing, 9, and then a bit of cape in the back here, 10, could definitely count as that, and then the background. So we've got 11 layers, give or take, to this to create a sense of depth. And it's not like, you know, it seems like he's maybe in enclosed space, but so much dimension is added to this illustration just from what are McFarlane's tricks, right, that he's worked out. That layering effect, that design effect with the framing, the repetition, it's all kind of on display here. Unfortunately, in the writing, it's not as strong, and this issue is an example of that. So let's get to it. So flashback part 2, story and art McFarlane, letters and editor Tom Orzechowski, color Steve Oliff and Ruben Rude. Recently, my buddy Robert Norton, check out his channel that reviews comics. Robert Norton is the channel, reviewed this comic, and he just I guess, reamed Tom McFarlane is how I'll put it. I'll leave it at that about this first page here. And I'll say the same thing kind of he said. I remember as a kid opening up this comic, that cover had a lot of promise, talked a lot about it. It's pretty cool. And then you hit this and you're like, oh, dear God, I got to read all of this. Why couldn't this all be in the images, right? Like, it's a visual medium. It's when McFarlane, you know, it's something that maybe I'm glad that, you know, the art moved over to Greg Capullo. So I think he's better at this, like the visual representation of what's going on, just being kind of literal with that, which is very important in comics, not to do that all the time, but, you know, to at least create a sense of understanding as to what's going on, right? But McFarlane is definitely guilty of this. Is the more he's given independence writing wise. In Spider-Man, he did it to a certain extent, and then on Spawn, he's got free reins. Is he just starts to cover a lot of the story in the narration and in the text rather than in the images. And it's, you know, again, it's a visual medium. I've always had that philosophy. You know, use the words if you can't tell it in the images, right? But if you can get your point across just visually, go that way. You know, minimal kind of text and dialogue to a certain extent. You know, there's always good reason to do a lot or do very little, you know, if you have good reasons for it. But McFarlane's just pouring on the text, and, you know, to face this first page like that just really, really, really deflates your excitement for this comic. Luckily, there's some stuff after this that will compensate for that. Dedicated to George Perez. Have we seen his pinup yet? I don't remember. So again, like, you've got all of this here. It's, you know, Spawn's background with Chapel and the women they seduced and the drinks and the killing they did, and that's very gritty and stuff. It's very kind of, you know, Frank Miller, I guess, a bad version of Frank Miller. But I will say the actual story here is actually fun, and there's not too much to read. So too much text to read. So Badrog playing video games here, kind of fun. Breaking the controller, right? You got to. This is more characterization we've had for Badrock or Bedrock or whatever the hell you want to call him than we've had in all these issues of Youngblood up to this point, right? And I would say that probably for all three of these Youngblood guys who appear in this issue. So Chapel, Shaft, and Die Hard and Bedrock. So there's four of them. Sorry, I missed that. I don't know if Die Hard's in this very much. Yeah, this is the most kind of interaction outside of them beating up people and going after bad guys. And even then, you know, this scene is a training scene. Once again, good old training scene. But this is the most interaction we've seen, just kind of interpersonal between these guys. And it's McFarlane handling it. So I don't know if it's the greatest, but it's better than in Youngblood, you know. He kind of made them more interesting to a certain extent in these pages than Youngblood did, or Rob Liefeld did all throughout the whole Youngblood miniseries. I mean, the art's great. It's McFarlane, excuse me. Apart from the first page, which is definitely a deadline thing and moving on, I think. You know, you can get a page done pretty quickly doing them that way. I don't think he's skipping on the art. I do enjoy kind of his Shaft here, this little panel here with the technology. I think it looks kind of cool. I mean, that goofy face there, I pointed out to Robert Norton as well, is I feel like, and I'll say it here, Tom McFarlane's almost drawn himself here. This looks like Tom McFarlane to me, just with the blonde kind of hair, or red-headed. That's right, he's a redhead, Shaft. Yeah, this kind of clue here in the foreground that spawns in the building. That's pretty cool, interesting. Bit of foreshadowing. Chapel, he kind of doesn't define his face too much for some reason, which is weird because it's going to change. So I feel like, you know, this would have been a good, he doesn't have his makeup on. This would have been a good time to show Chapel's, you know, real face, I guess, or unmakeuped. I keep inventing words. Unmakeuped face, apart from this faraway shot here where he looks fairly normal. You know, here he just looks kind of Sin City-ish and gritty. You know, Die Hard doesn't get weird ass on Shaft too, kind of a droopy ass. Die Hard, he's very small here, but I like this kind of landing pose he's doing, almost like he's very kind of, almost like a gymnastic kind of character, Captain America kind of character, right? That's basically what he is. And again, this shot here is much more in the JAE Lee mold of Chapel than the Rob Liefeld mold. The glove, the knife with all the protruding angles everywhere, the ripped up jean shirt, right? There's a bit of Bisley in this as well, even though it's McFarlane. This sequence is pretty cool. Probably didn't take him very long to draw. That's okay, because I do think storytelling wise it's very cool and pretty interesting. So he reveals himself basically to these young blood guys. Pfft, cool, just, you know, establishing shot of Spawn, if you can call it that. I like, again, McFarlane's design sense and having the character right now on this page. Spawn is what's closest to us in the foreground. The feet are overlapping these panels, right? Or at least this foot is, and a bit of the chain, so that's the indication there. You've got this kind of panel behind him, so the overlap creates that extra level and dimension and layer. Once again, McFarlane being the master of this kind of stuff. The big hand in the foreground, the characters in the background, and even down here where I don't know if this is on purpose or if the letterer did this, whatever. Even the idea that this word balloon here, this phylactery, kind of overlaps just a little bit of the frame there, that just pushes our view and our reading direction more down right and to the next page. So it's a nice little touch there, subtle, whether on purpose or not, or whether by the letter, I don't know. It's kind of a weird Klaus Janson arm thing going on there from Dark Knight. I know that's very specific, but I feel like, you know, there's that drawing of Batman where his arm's out in Dark Knight where it looks a little odd or almost broken, but it's fine because you accept it because that's kind of the level of drawing and illustration in Dark Knight. And I feel like McFarlane's done one of those here. Maybe that's way too OCD-ish, but anyways. This teleportation effect is all right, the way he's drawn it. I just think the coloring maybe doesn't help it as much as it should. Just, yeah, it doesn't quite do it for me. I like the Dracula pose. That's pretty fun. So what he does is he grabs Chapel, right? And it's explained here, and they teleport away. And we're going to see that, but like it's just not very obvious in here. So he shows Spawn teleporting away, but he doesn't show Chapel leaving too, right? He just has Bedrock pointing it out. It said, once again, the dialogue. Story points not coming across visually. I guess they didn't want them seeing Chapel get teleported away. You know, I guess that's the reasoning. Maybe that's what it is. I could be wrong on this. So it was fun seeing McFarlane do Youngblood, but that's about it, other than for Chapel for the rest of this issue. Kind of a cool, fun little panel there. Said it before, I love that moon sun design with the lines coming across. Always looks good visually. The boring stuff, right? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a part of Spawn for a long time, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but, you know, very often there's 2, 4, maybe 6 pages of each issue kind of dealing with Spawn's ex-wife and her new partner and their child, right? Not much is going on. It's always just, oh, there's a threat, and, you know, I'm thinking of Cyan, and I don't want any harm coming to them. It's pretty obvious stuff. Your obligatory Sam and Twitch sequence, which is fine, because, you know, just like in Savage Dragon, there's kind of 3 stories, I guess, going on in Spawn. 3 main stories. There's a Sam and Twitch thread, there's the Wanda thread, and then there's the Spawn thread. And that's what he's going to be using a lot of pretty much throughout the first 100 issues, I think, right? And we're going to be seeing a lot of that. Cool design choices on Spawn here. This origami look is pushed to the extreme, and I think it's pretty cool. Chapel, once again, like I said, we haven't gotten a really good shot of his face. I can't recall right now if we will. But before the drastic change we're going to see, it would have been kind of nice, I think, to just have a good shot of his face. Again, not representative of Chapel's face, right? He's kind of supposed to look like this, evil and such, when he's got the makeup on. So, I don't think this is the best drawing I've ever seen. Not McFarlane's best, unless he's kind of channeling, again, that Bisley look. I feel like maybe that's what it is. He's doing some Simon Bisley stuff here because, you know, that's the look. Again, I've talked about this on, I guess it was the last Spawn review with the Blood Wolf poster, how clearly Rob Liefeld took inspiration from JAE Lee. I feel like McFarlane's doing the same here, and JAE Lee took inspiration from Simon Bisley, so we're getting a little bit of that. Again, definitely the JAE Lee kind of Chapel design. Now, I'll flip this around just because this may be one of the clear shots of his face. All right. Not the best one. He's getting beaten up on, so I guess his face is starting to, you know, callous a little bit. Take a little break for the Walter Simonson poster. I mean, I love Walter Simonson. You know, I don't think he does a bad job here. It looks great. It's his usual great level of illustration and form and foreshortening and volume. I just don't think that Walter Simonson's strengths are necessarily suited to a character like Spawn. So great illustration, just not a character I would want to see Walt Simonson draw, right? So here Spawn takes off his mask once again and start noticing the nose that used to protrude, that he used to have sticking out, is just disappeared or is disappearing. I don't know if we're going to see it in the next few issues come back, but that's going to be a story point later on, and I'll talk about it again later on, but pay attention to that nose in and out. So here he calls him something that they used to call him back in the day, right? Spawn calls Chapel that, the Don Juan of killers, right? So he knows only one person could know that he was called that, and that's Al Simmons. So now, obvious flashback, right? In kind of even the art and the coloring in both, the level of it. Excuse me. Again, very much inspired by JAE Lee as to the Chapel design, the teeth here being kind of more horror and horrific than the original Liefeld design. And I've always kind of just really liked this panel here. It's nice and straightforward. It's a profile shot of the gun, Al Simmons, the gun that killed Al Simmons, and it's not, you know, a typical gun with bullets, but one of these image deals with the laser or whatever. So just kind of burning off most of his face. So maybe implying that what we see and what Spawn looks like is literally a result of, you know, the shot, at least this death shot from Chapel, you know, mangled his hands and his face to the level where he looks like Spawn. And that all happened in 1987. Because this is 5 years in the future, right? 1992, or close enough. I mean, Spawn's been around for a year now, maybe, so I don't know if he's moving ahead chronologically in the years with us, but not that important to know. And I feel like, you know, if we look at these pages, we're getting into a bit of Deadline territory. Just, you know, some heavily shadowed faces, some quick close-ups, no background, some quick action lines. This shot of Spawn here, not the best in the world. Yeah, it just feels like the artwork's being rushed a little bit here. I'm even wondering if maybe he doesn't have someone ghosting him already. Just a question, you know, someone who's going to end up drawing the series later. I don't know. Could be wrong on this. This is definitely McFarlane. The width between the eyes, the look of it, that all, it's very McFarlane. But these are all, he's pulling out all the tricks to get some pages done quickly here. Even here, he's like started dropping just the details on Spawn, right? Silhouette, big ass and leg, almost no backgrounds, right? And story-wise, like I've talked about, there's some steam has been let out of McFarlane's kind of motivation, I think, for the Spawn series. I've talked about how, you know, before the heavyweight writers came on, he had, you know, some story threads. He brought in the origin of Spawn, Billy Kincaid. Then he had the overt kill storyline, you know, introducing that character that he created with Rob Liefeld. All kind of exciting things, I think, for him. And this is kind of the last bit of stuff that's kind of already planned. And then after this, the storyline kind of falters a bit for a while. Until Greg Capullo kind of really takes over as the artist. I feel like this is the point where that starts to happen a little bit. And so here's the sequence where we've been talking about. So we haven't actually gotten there's one kind of far away clear shot of, you know, Chapel looking normal and fairly handsome. And Spawn decides to, you know, alter his face again to even the score. And again, all this storytelling just really feels like this is a Deadline moment, and McFarlane's just trying to get this issue out. Lots of shadows. Spawn doesn't even have the cape, and, you know, like, I wonder if he had him take the cape off in the story. Just where did that happen? Let's look at that. So once he's teleported, I guess is that what happens? Excuse me. Yeah. So he's got the cape on here, and then all of a sudden he doesn't. Just, you know, figures it's going to take less time. He was trying to figure out what to do with the cape, and he's like, take it off. That's probably what happened. I feel like he didn't really explain it in the story, so literally it was a kind of visual choice of like, I got to get some pages out, and the less cape I got to draw, the better. Yep. And here we go. The reveal of Chapel's new look, which is basically the same look we got introduced to last issue on the same page when it was kind of revealed that Chapel was Al Simmons' killer. So not an actual change, which is kind of weird, right? He just ends up looking like JAE Lee Chapel. Now, if you're going to make a change, the teeth had already been kind of depicted this way, right? So now it's an actual kind of skull face. Why leave in the nose? Wouldn't this be the perfect moment to just kind of take that nose out and give him the old skull look? The eyes are fine. You can leave those. But yeah, just I feel that you're making him more skull-like, but you're leaving the nose in. You know, to make him the most skull-like, you would take that out. So I always thought that was just such a weird choice when I got to the end of this issue. Because it's a great drawing, too. Just take out that damn nose. I know that's weird to say, but it's just, yeah. And next issue, the return of the Violator. So kind of the beginning, too, of going back and recycling stuff for Todd McFarlane. And for the next few issues, right up to his last one, which is 24, I believe, you know, he's going to focus kind of less and less on this. There's 5 fill-in issues in between. So, like, this is 13. So, 14 to 24, that's 10 issues. I'm pretty sure about 5 of those are Greg Capullo filling in. So, there's only about 5 more issues by Todd McFarlane left. And in those issues, you will see, or I feel, and I remember that he kind of falters a little bit with those. And like I said, once Greg Capullo comes on regularly, he kind of gets back on track a little bit. But we'll see that progress as we go along and review these next issues. Spawning Ground. So again, a lot of fan art that just looks like copied image art. And there you go, guys. That's all I have to say really about Spawn number 13. Great cover once again. And I just want to thank everyone out there who is subscribed and still watching the channel. I really appreciate your support. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It takes a quick second for you. Helps the channel out, helps us grow, helps get us out there to people who are like-minded like us and are into comic books. So to everyone out there who's watching, thank you so much once again and have an awesome day.
Like! Subscribe! Like! Subscribe!
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.